Okay, welcome guys. We are gradually drawing to the end of the semester. So today we are going to resume um, reviewing in the past questions. But before we do that, I will need to remind you to um, read this paper very well, Davidson on peer review system in IX. It's going to help you to know the things you need to look out for when you everything is not contained here, but this book is like it provides you the standard, a criteria to judge most papers you are going to come across, especially the qual exam papers. So it's very good to read this paper. And then I also posted another paper on replication. Replication is very, very important because that is the goal of the scientific research, ability to replicate one research in another environment. There are different types of, it can be theoretical, replication, it can be, replication, data replication, it could be replication of using maybe a different environment. So usually in real world research, we have the problem of replication in real world research, because in real world research, we are working with human persons in their in their different environments, such that replication becomes a kind of questionable. Can we really replicate real events in life? Since things are always changing. So it is a major argument about replication. But the realists believe so much in replication. And in replication, we are trying to establish the causal mechanisms that are at work, that are responsible for some of the observed effects, that we are experiencing. So, and in order to establish those causal mechanisms, through replication, you know, scientists, take one research conducted on a different environment and take it to either another environment, or use a new set of data to see if you can be able to arrive, at the same conclusion like a previous paper, and it's like the holy grail of scientific research. People should be able to replicate your paper. And that's why we go for reliability of scales, and we have a theoretical framework. The research has to be very transparent so that people can see actually what you do. So that replication is a kind of triangulation, but not triangulation in that sense, because the goal of replication is to understand if the mechanisms that we are at work in this industry can also be found if the same research will be conducted in a different environment, So maybe changing the data, or looking at the theory from a different way, or using different subjects, So this replication is very, very important. So you need to read that paper and then look at the different types of replication, and why replication is very, very important. And when we are not doing replication in the real world, usually in the natural sciences, it is easier to replicate. When you are conducting an experiment in a lab, the volume of acid, the volume of base, you control the temperature of the environment, and all these things are like under control. So it becomes very easy to redo the same experiment again, over and over again, under the same controlled conditions, you know. So under the same controlled conditions, you can redo it again, and then observe the different effects, under similar, contingent environment. So, but in real world research, there is argument, is it possible? Yes, we can also replicate even in real world. Where things are always changing, nothing is static, things are always changing. There are things you can always replicate. So that's the argument. There are things you can always replicate. You can do theoretical replication. You can try a different theory and see if this same theory, whether the same mechanisms are at work in this organization. So there are things, even though you may not do like 100% replication, like in the natural sciences, in real world research, you can do some level of replication. So there are aspects of a research that can be replicated. So, trying to understand what mechanisms that are at work. When you're using a predictive model, right, like youth-out, you can use youth-out in a school, predicting adoption of a certain technology artifact, can do it in a company. You can see the mechanisms, at work in each of these cases. So even though it is not like in total repeating the initial experiment in exactly the same way. That's why this word contingent is always there, under similar contingent, situation. So which means there are things that are varies, but there are things that can also be controlled, even in a real world research. So there are things you can control, but there are things that are also contingent, So read that paper on replication is very, very, very important. And read literature review. Ever since we began, we have not said anything about literature review. We have different types of literature review, If you go back to your notes, you can be able to grasp, but they may not ask you in a qualifying exam, they may not ask you types of literature review, but they will ask you the importance. Why, as a researcher, do you consider literature review very important? Let's discuss it. Why do we do literature review? We need to establish like 5 solid points why we do literature review. So let's discuss it briefly before we move into this paper. I want us to talk about it because these are one of those things you see in the qual exam. So if we don't mention it now, maybe some of you may not even have time again, to read them. So what do you think about literature review? Why is literature review so much emphasized? Such that a paper can be rejected, by all these journals because your literature review is not up to date. Your literature review is not up to date. That's why when we are doing, like myself, who is doing annotated bibliography, I limited myself at the beginning to papers that we are written in the last 4 years, from 2018, 2019, 2021, and 2022. Limited my so that I can be in touch with the most recent discussions, on that particular topic I'm investigating. So such new papers, new publication will also reference some important papers that you might need to go beyond 4 years. It can even take you to 1980 when the theory was first established and what are the conceptual definition or how it was operationalized then and what has happened over the years till date, So you begin with the newest papers and then begin to go back, go back. But it's good to be current and up to date and must have reviewed a good number of papers written in that field on that topic. So why do you need to do that?
To identify with the topic is nobody did before, and I think it's also I learned something. It's interesting and also contribute to the knowledge. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
About literature, yeah.
I think we need to. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think we need to learn from the literature review to get the understanding of the existing research about their theory or concept. We can know about it, and then based on this, we can find our research topic. and make a new contribution to this field or this topic. Yeah.
Yeah. So a kind of establishing gaps, right?
Establishing gaps. Theoretic, academic or theoretic, right? The whole essence of this academic enterprise is to discover new knowledge. So literature reviews helps us identify those gaps and establish that we're actually in path to build or contribute new knowledge.
Problematize. Yeah.
It also helps
problematize assumptions.
It also helps the reviewers, the ultimate reviewers, identify experts in the field of your research, should they need to validate some of your findings.
We still have more points.
Well, I guess, as people said, we can familiarize ourselves with the current situation of the topic that we are looking for, so we wouldn't repeat what others been doing. And as OK said, we can identify the gaps, and we can develop our theoretical framework and methodology maybe, and we can have an overview over like what we've found and have some debates over the topic, I guess.
Yeah, sure. And remember, it is also through literature review that you can also discover theories that have been established, that will enable you to have a theoretical framework for your research. Remember, it's also through literature review that you can be able to validate some of the skills. Usually the skills we need for reliability are usually, derived from, previous studies. So literature review contributes a whole lot.
Is there a paper on this?
Our understanding. There are different types of literature reviews, that can be done. We have the traditional one, we have the traditional literature review. The traditional ones we do, like we go back to understand what is going. But there is also systematic reviews, but the systematic reviews adhere to scientific methods that explicitly, aim to limit systematic error, mainly by attempting to identify, appraise, and synthesize relevant studies. So traditional literature review sometimes is just you expose what is already there. When you are doing a systematic literature review, it becomes, you are doing literature, maybe the goal is just to expose what has already been done in the field, not with the aim of problematizing assumption or gap, but you want to discover, and usually it is something that is very analytical. You are reading and you are analyzing, what's going on in the field, and then you can be able to come with up-to-date information about what is going on. Maybe you are looking at a particular topic, look at how this person presented it, so it involves some kind of analysis. You are doing the literature and you're also analyzing what is going on. They call it kind of meta-analysis. We have umbrella reviews. There are also systematic reviews of reviews, explaining the findings of a systematic review. We have rapid reviews. There are systematic reviews carried out over a severely limited time period. We have scooping reviews that provides preliminary assessment of the likely size and scope of available literature. That is scoping, scoping reviews. So we have text-based literature review. So all this is, you might need to go back and understand more, of what literature review, the different types of literature review we have. But the most importantly is what literature review contributes to us, in doing our study. We identify gaps through literature. We understand the missing links, something Some phenomenon that have been understudied can also be taken from literature. When you do literature review, you discover that this particular phenomenon has been understudied, or can also discover that something has never been studied at all, and there's need to do that. That's the kind of gaps you can discover doing a literature review, and this helps you to problematize your assumptions, and then you come up with a research question. So without literature review, it will be difficult for you to actually, know what you are doing, know where you stand. So the systematic literature review process usually says define the research question, what it aims to answer, decide on the parameters, specify the topic, discuss the proposed review with stakeholders, recruit a steering group, write a protocol, carry out the search process and the screening of references, address the screen, assess the screen references against the inclusion and exclusion criteria, extract relevant information, quality appraisal, so these are the things you need to consider, synthesize, all the states were included, and then write a report, include all the detailed references. So a systematic literature review is like more of a scientific exercise. It's not just like the normal literature review we do. When you say you are doing a systematic review, first of all, you have to classify, like you said, it says here, you have to establish protocols, inclusion and exclusion. What papers are going to be there? Are you going to review? Maybe say we reviewed papers written in the last 10 years, become systematic. What are the criteria for including or excluding any paper? Maybe say only papers, discussed, that maybe that that focused more on this particular topic. So, and then you use it as a screen, to remove other papers that doesn't fall into that category. So it is a whole lot of work. One of us says that the advisor asked him to do a systematic literature review, and it's not very easy. In doing systematic literature review, you have to state why you decided to use maybe Google Scholar, or why you decided to use any other databases. And you have to mention all the databases that you visited. So it's not like simple, reading any paper randomly and then getting information from them. So there has to be all these protocols observed. It's something scientific and very critical and analytical, to do a systematic literature review. It's wonderful because systematic literature reviews also contributes a lot in helping you to even understand better what is going on, But most times the goal is just the review of that literature, not just to conduct a research based on the literature you studied or you reviewed. So that what we usually do is we do the literature search, and then sometimes we have some criteria. Of course, when you are doing a literature review, you ought to have some criteria, maybe this limit to this number of years, limit to this number of journals, maybe exclude the conference papers and focus on papers on the basket of 8, or, there's some kind of criteria that needs to be established, for you to do a literature review. So when you do the normal literature review, you are trying to identify gaps. When you do a systematic literature review, you are doing a review, as a research on its own. Usually it's not something one person does. Most systematic literature reviews are either authored by 2 or 3 or more. Because it's so much work reading. Sometimes they review up to 100 and something papers, or more 300 or 1,000. Sometimes you see thousands of papers, read on a particular topic. So please, you can do more work on literature reviews, and expect questions on literature review, expect questions on replication, So looking at this Davidson, usually these are some of the criteria that must be strictly adhered to by any paper that we have a very good reputation, especially papers that are published in MIS Quarterly and other, high-ranking journals. So are the ethical standards upheld? Are the research participants and subjects truly treated ethically? And then we have the institution IRB, where we obtain the call it the permission to really work with the human subjects. If your research involves interacting with the human persons, either in your experiment or in whatever way, you have to mingle with human beings. Then you have to obtain, that permission to work with human beings. That is part of complying with the ethics of research. Because there are some. I remember when we did that IR and IRB training, when we did some training that prepares you to work with human persons. There are people you don't just you question directly, maybe minors. You need to obtain permission of their parents, all those stuff. Prisoners, you don't use prisoners for experimentation. There has to be a lot of protocols observed before you can really work. So all this stuff, ethical process, ethical requirements must be fully met. Indications of plagiarism, we all know that already. And the research methods are appropriate to the research challenge. Research method is very, very important. And that's the first thing you usually look at in every paper. Are the research methods appropriate? Maybe they did a quantitative. Because first of all, they begin to reason quantitatively and qualitatively. Ask yourself, the phenomenon these guys are trying to investigate in this paper, could it be better, investigated, via qualitative or quantitative? Maybe they did it quantitative, and you have argued your argument to state that it should be better for a qualitative study. Given your reason, justify your reasons. So you have to look at the research methods that is used, look at them. If they are doing quantitative study, then look at whether they are using the right, statistical method. Is it just, did they do a t-test, or did they use ANOVA or regression? Then you have to consider the appropriateness of the statistical method they employed in that paper. So are data collection methods valid? How did they collect their data? So how did they collect their data? So maybe they used online surveys. Is it better appropriate? Should they have added extra, triangulated their data collection? Should they have collected maybe some other information based on interview or focused groups, or some kind of interview? Or would it have been better to do some kind of triangulation in their data collection? So you have to establish whether their data collection method is valid. How do they get the data for their analysis? And here you might also consider the sample. What's their sampling statistics? Do they actually target the right population? Is the population statistically significant for the analysis? Because these are the things you have to look out for. If you don't have a statistical significant sample, then the analysis, the outcome of the research will be flawed, because you may not be able to dictate effects, that are there or not there because of the small sample involved. So then you see, are data analysis logically and mathematically correct? Data analysis, logically and mathematically correct. So, and all this also boils down to the statistics, that is used. Did you reporting the right statistics and interpreting them correctly? For instance, you are doing a regression, and in a regression, you're looking at how the whole independent variable, a linear combination, predicts the dependent variable, or what is the most significant predictor. And there are some statistics like T stat, F stat, the R square, adjusted R square. There are some statistics you are looking at, and there are the p-value already established. You are looking at these statistics to interpret the outcome. So that is the is it very logical to conclude that based on the p-square value, since it is greater than, let's say it is greater than 0.05, to say the relationship is not significant? Can you make such a conclusion based on your p-value? So look at the analysis, whether it is logical and mathematically correct. So that's what they are saying here. And then, are the inferences and conclusion justified by the findings? The inferences, remember, you have a theory. You have a theory at the beginning. If you have a theory at the beginning, you made some hypothetical assumptions, and you are testing your hypothesis based on the sample. So based on the sample, that you analyzed, you are trying to infer what is happening in the entire population. Here, the sample also affects the kind of inferential statements and the conclusions you are going to be drawn. So are your inferences justified by the findings of the research? So this is also something that you need to look at. Then, are the limitations of the study acknowledged? Very, very important. Are the references appropriate and up to date? That's what we just discussed, about literature review. So is the presentation clear, readable, grammatically correct? Sometimes you see a lot of clumsy statements and typo mistakes in papers. It could be a conference paper, So are the concepts and arguments well organized, structured, and defensible? Are the findings appropriately situated with respect to the existing literature? So you can see that literature review comes in, like in two places in this these standards. Literature review, plays an important role, whether it is up to date and whether the finding is situated within respect to the existing literature, because you are investigating a certain phenomenon and you have traced it down the literature and discovered there was a gap. So whatever contribution you are going to make will be contributing to the body of knowledge of that phenomenon that you're investigating. So it must be situated with respect to the existing literature. So these are some of the things we usually look at. Not everything is here, like I told you, but these are the things we need to pay attention. So now, this is the first paper. The first paper was for 501, Brucalia, for fall 2021. You may not have time. So one of the challenges we usually have reviewing past questions is most times we don't have time to read all the papers. We don't usually have time to read all the papers. So sometimes those questions that borders on the actual reading of the paper might be skipped. That's why in the last few days of the exam, when everyone must have read the approved paper, there is need for serious discussion on those papers. And in this case, everyone must have read the paper, so the argument will be very heated, and strong. The contribution will be very strong. But at this point in time, we may just answer some questions that are very open questions, and those we can be able to figure out from the paper. Because if I ask you, did you read this paper? None of you read it. But there are things you can be able to make out of this paper. This paper says it is predictive model to improve online retention. They did a literature review here, and they did a methodology and data set and data analysis. So what do you think is wrong with this paper? Remember, this is a conference paper, It's a conference paper. They have a methodology and data set. They have a data analysis. This is a regression result. Unfortunately, you didn't read this paper. Had it been you read this paper, you can be able to find out all the flaws and the problem, with this paper. One here, they don't even have a theoretical framework. They don't have a theoretical framework in this paper. Their literature review wasn't even exhaustive and up to date. There is no theoretical framework in this paper, because if you're doing a prediction model, you ought to have some theory of prediction, like they have, like the UTAUT, like a very good predictive model on which you are going to base your data collection, analysis, or any form of experimentation that you are conducting, So look at, say, the methodology. Say, de-identified information was gathered about students from undergraduate courses taught at Black Hill State. Each variable was used separately to predict the outcome. Now they're talking about variables. Look at the variable. They say the ATC score, HSPGA, current college GPA, pass withdrawal, passing history, dropping a credit hours completed, financial status, course registration status, and the degree seeking status. And then look at the predictor. Look at all the variables. They didn't establish the dependent and the independent variables here. Remember, it is model to improve online student, predictive model to improve retention of online students. Is this paper even acceptable in an IX journal? Where is the IT artifact they are studying? Predictive model of online. Online is not an IT artifact. The internet is so vast.
But the model can be an IT artifact.
The model cannot be an IT artifact. The model cannot be the IT artifact, because someone can be modeling a student behavior, student behavior in an educational setting or in a classroom setting. For the fact online here, that is online here, doesn't say that there is an IT artifact.
Yeah, so for example, they need to design the online software to.
There has to be some software, the technology. They are trying to predict, how this technology will improve online retention. How using this technology or how implementation of this technology will improve, online retention of students. So there is no IT artifact here.
No. I disagree. See, predictive modeling to improve retention of online students. Yes. If you remember DSR, right? We can have an algorithm as a model. Am I wrong?
No,
you have a software instantiation as a model. Yes. As an artifact, sorry.
As a DSR artifact.
Okay.
As an outcome, as a solution to a problem.
Okay, but they are all IT artifacts, right?
They are not IT artifacts in the sense of the study we are under investigation.
So what you're telling me is that a model, an algorithm, a model cannot
for modeling what? Using which technology? There has to be. Look at Benzabat's paper. And then read this paper. Read this paper. Read this paper very well and ask yourself what is the IT artifact, its implication, managerial, technical, the immediate nomological net of the IT artifact. Where is it here? The IT artifact and its immediate nomological net. When you are doing DSR, no, this is not a DSR paper.
So
this is not a. You have to evaluate.
We will be told, because I don't know. There's the integrative paper that does everything. will you be specifically told this is not a DSR paper, this is a core paper?
If you are given the integrative question, you can also come up with the fact that the methodology, the DSR methodology doesn't work well or does work well for this kind of paper. You have the freedom to say that this paper should be better if it is designed using maybe qualitative or quantitative, and it's not good. The approach in doing DSR is, it's not proper. So that should be
flexible. That's for
the
integrative paper. But for other papers like qualitative, will we be specifically told that this is a qualitative, should be a qualitative paper?
Yes.
You can't use DSR.
Yes, they will. They will tell you this is for 501, this is for 503, this is for 504, this is for 505. They will tell you which paper. And you have to, this paper is a 501 paper.
I see.
You are evaluating this paper based on 501 mindset.
Okay, so what you're saying, let me get this clear. So the week before the exam that they give you the papers to read, make it specific that this paper you're reading applies to 501. This paper you're reading applies to 503.
Yes, let me show you something on my screen.
Okay.
Let me show you something on my screen. Okay, let me share my screen. Oh, yeah. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
You see 501A, Brucalia.
Okay.
You see it? You see this one, Pan et al. 5. So they designate the paper what it is. This is 504, Xiong et al. This is 503.
Pan et al. They didn't put the course there.
The what?
The course is not there.
The pan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this pan is integrative.
I see.
Yes.
Okay.
So you evaluate each paper based on the course, and you expect you use the 501 mindset to ask some questions, some relevant questions. It's there any IT artifact in this paper? Understand all those questions, 501 questions. What is their theoretical frame? Do they even have a theory? What's the theoretical framework? What is about their literature review? Did they do a very good literature review? What kind of variables? How did they operationalize most of these variables that are employed in this paper? What kind of data analysis? What kind of, they said it is regression. What are the variables they investigated? So these are some of the questions that needs to be raised. So let's now go to the question section. This is just the paper itself. So the question here, qualifying week 1. We are given the paper predictive modeling to improve retention of online students. To read the preparation using the ideas from 501. Oh, can you see my? Oh, you can't see my screen. Sorry. Okay.
So Clement.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
So read the questions and begin to. So I said that this should be like a discussion, or it's no longer myself talking and talking. I've been talking. So you are going to say whatever you think, because most of these questions are 501 questions. Some of them are not just based on the paper, and they are just general questions.
That was for the last year?
2021 fall.
2021. Well, that it was short article though, just 3 pages. That's good. Because I remember last time you told me there's usually in the qualifying exam they get long articles
There are, yes, pages. I said you get long articles, and this is that one is a conference paper, and the question that's been asked based on that paper, you are going to write. You might write up to the same 3 pages, because looking at the question you have here, 33% explain the basic ideas of POPA as discussed in this course. if Popper's ideas have merit.
Which book did Popper write again?
Huh?
Which
I
book
think-
did he write?
What?
Yeah.
Is Popper the philosophy of science? Or...
Yeah, the philosophy of science. This is 501 now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the guy who talk about falsification, theory falsifications.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and this, so this might be something that current philosophers also think is false. You know, how do the modeling and the proposed research of Brucalia, 209, stand up to them? So, is this research contemplated by Brucalia something which Popper would have approved?
Well, let me see. The first point for me, I would just look if there is limitation section on the paper or not.
It's not about limitation of the paper, it is about the whole paper.
Yeah, so
First of all, you know the basic ideas of Popper.
Yep.
Do you know the basic ideas of Popper?
yeah,
The
yeah,
first-
of course, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the first,
but
that's the
my
first thing-
point is,
that's
sorry,
the first thing
Clement.
we discussed. The first thing we discussed. Popper tried to, his main goal is to distinguish, to separate what is science from non-science. And his approach to doing that is his demarcation. So he tried to demarcate between what is scientific and what is unscientific. And there is like two approaches in understanding science, according to Popper. We always have the first cycle of I'm forgetting.
The falsification.
Not falsification. Science goes through two cycles. You first of all make it's not making an assumption and refutation. It is
Hypothesis.
no. Conjecture. You make a conjecture and then refutation.
You make it hard.
It is assumed you must have a theory. Can you hear me?
Yep.
It is assumed that you must have a theory, because Popper says a hypothesis is true only if it can be falsified, by some level of observation. So he believes in this idea of falsification. You can only falsify a scientific theory. You cannot confirm a scientific theory. Confirmation for him is not possible. That's why he's an inductive skeptic. So what it means for Popper is that you must establish a hypothesis, which is like your initial conjecture. And then this hypothesis must be subjected to empirical evaluation, to empirical evidence. And for Popper, observational evidence cannot, prove or confirm a scientific theory. You are only subjecting the scientific theory to observation to refute it, not to confirm it. Do you understand, Popper? So it is the theory of falsification. This paper doesn't have a theoretical framework. This paper never made any hypothetical, assumptions. Popper would not accept it, among many other things I have to say. Let me give you my sample question answer to this number 1. Let me share with you my sample answer, so that you understand like a kind of how it sounds. It is like something you argue. This exam is a critical exam. It's an exam where you are very logical, because it's not the kind of exams where you just answer things like a master's level. You need to be very critical about your answers. So let me give you a 501. What is a 501? Okay, 501. Okay. Now yes, my argument. Let me share with you now. You have to put on your thinking cap. Some people will say, put on your thinking cap for this exam, and they don't answer questions, literally, like, you have to be very critical and defend your position with the utmost alacrity and with every amount of justification and forcefulness. Look at what I answered here. I said, Karl Popper is known for his falsification theory, which holds that a hypothesis is scientific if and only if it can be refuted by some possible observation. Popper does not believe in confirmation of a theory using observational evidence. For him, induction is a myth. Scientific change for him progresses through conjecture and refutation. The modeling by Brucalia is just an exploratory quantitative study that lacks a sound theoretical basis. They have no constructs and a theoretical framework from which hypothetical ideas could be deduced to subject to observational evidence. The modeling proposed by Brucalia does not stand up to Popper's ideas on many counts. As a philosopher that does not believe in confirmation of theories, rather the refutation of them, Brucalia's model has virtually no hypothesis, and therefore their work is what Popper would call pseudoscience, because it lacks scientific basis. Popper would not approve their paper because they have not come up with a theory that can take risks by being subjected to observational evidence for refutation. This is my answer.
Excuse me, Climate, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay. This actually subject has just confused me a lot. Now, look at this. This is the theory. I want you to falsify it. Sun rise every day from the east. That's fact. But could you please falsify this?
Yes. According to
How?
you mean based on Popper's, right? Popper's idea.
Yeah.
Yes. For Popper, for the fact that the sun rises every day, we are already attuned because of how our planetary system is set up. Popper will tell you there is a possibility that someday something strange might happen to this planet, that the sun will no longer rise from the east. And in as much as our belief today that the sun rises from the east, for Popper, you are not sure of it tomorrow. And therefore, he would not accept it as a theory that the sun will always, till the end of this world, rise from the east. That's the falsification, and that's what Popper means.
Thank you very much.
And this is the kind of argument, you can give in a qualifying exams. And it is logical, because we have witnessed a whole lot of things in this planet. The current problem we are battling with what do you call it? Climatic conditions and the pollution and whatever is happening, the ecosystem, all the problems. It could be that someday this universe will cease to be the same universe. A whole lot of things are already happening. With the global warming, global climate change in climate. There are things that we are not there in the 80s and 90s that we are experiencing now as a result of global warming. So a scientist could also postulate that someday the sun might not rise from the east. It might be in the west or something else. So we have to, that's why Popper says we have to maintain a tentative attitude to our theories. You know, even though it can be a theory, you can say it is a theory that the sun always rises from the east. The Popper will say it is just tentative. You cannot confirm it simply because you observe it every day. You have observed it for 100 years, and therefore you say, I confirm that it has. Popper said, no confirmation. We are talking about a man, Popper, who contributed a lot to science, a respectable genius.
Oh, wait. If
Yeah.
if the sun rises from the east every day, the mere fact, according to Popper's philosophy, that it cannot be falsified from,
it cannot be confirmed. It
cannot be confirmed.
Yes.
Just by observing it, right?
Yes. Yeah, there could be possibility that someday, you know, it might rise from the west or some other place. So you reserve that tentative approach, even though you can come up with a theory that establishes the fact.
From my understanding of Popper, once a phenomenon can be falsified, that justifies it as once a phenomenon has the all the constructs to be able to prove or disprove the falsification. Popper's all about falsification.
What Popper, let me put you on the right path. What Popper is saying is you are studying a phenomenon and you are using observational evidence, because we always rely on empirical evidence,
yes,
to confirm or refute theories. Yes. Every theory has a central claim that it makes. Like using, for instance, we have a theory that says the sun always rises from the east. That is a theory. And every theory has constructs. These constructs are different ways that this theory tries to capture the various aspects of the phenomena that it studies. And for a theory that has been verified, accepted within the scientific community, it is taken that this theory predicts under certain contingent condition. If this and this were met, then this theory will always be true under these conditions. Understand? Popper says no, he disagrees that there could also be a condition, even under the same similar condition, that something might happen, and that theory will cease to, be significant. Maybe the relationship between the phenomenon that the theory investigates is usually significant under certain situation. Under similar situation, Popper would say there could also something could happen and it ceases to be significant. So what he's trying to say is that for every theory that has constructs and has claims, this theory can be scientific first. How do we test this theory is scientific? If it is scientific, this theory must be subjected to observational evidence. We have to observe it in principle to know how it works, in practice. But we are not observing it so that even if the prediction of the theory comes out to be the same, every other time, the prediction is right, the prediction is right, the prediction is right, you can conclude that the theory has been confirmed on the grounds of the several predictions that came out to be true, on the grounds of the several observations. No, Popper says you will keep on observing to refute, not to confirm. Because what belief do we have? What evidence do we have that what is true today will also be true tomorrow? We are not sure. What is true today might cease to be true tomorrow. We've had that when you study the history of science. Some of the Newtonian laws and the Galileo and the, about the shape of the universe, some of them were, came to be overturned with time. Some of them lasted for decades and for 100 centuries before those theories were overturned, we are refuted. So we must maintain this tentative attitude, even if the theory. Now, the problem comes, most scientists started asking, okay, if Popper does not believe in the idea of confirmation, How then do we accept a theory that has made several predictions correct, and the one that doesn't make a good prediction, or that has never come up with a significant prediction? Popper says, if a theory comes up with predictions that are always accurate each time, we can say that the theory has been corroborated. He brought in the word corroboration. It has been corroborated,
but not confirmed.
but not confirmed.
Climate,
A
Climate,
smart
could you
man.
please,
I love the
Climate,
guy. So,
could
Bros,
you please, Climate, could you please
yes.
just correct me if I'm wrong? So actually, the confirmation which is being refused by Dave de Hume, not Popper. Dave de Hume who said that we could not confirm a theory inductively. That's because we don't know when things gonna be changed in the future. So we're going to do the deductive, which tests the theory to confirm what we just observed. So falsification, but what I made in the theory of the sun rising from the east every day. So by that guy Popper mentioned that you have to prove what makes the sun does not rise from the east to confirm that it is rise every time from the east, which is spinning the planet spinning against the way it used to. That's the only way how we can confirm that could be changed in the future. So is that
Yes.
the way how to falsify the theory, which is make the theory false, which is bring an evidence or whatever you want to call it? How can we reject the theory scientifically? Is that correct?
Yeah, you are close to the idea of Popper, but there are some things you mentioned that are not really in line. But I think the basic idea is you cannot confirm anything on the grounds of observational evidence. And usually, the Popper's approach is hypothetical deductive method, which means you always begin with a hypothesis and you try to use observational evidence to refute that hypothesis, even if the prediction of the hypothesis turns out to be true, which means you were not able to refute it. Yes, your inability to refute it because it came out, positive or significant doesn't mean it has been confirmed. Popper will say, keep on trying until you refute it someday. So keep on trying until you refute it. So don't say, bro, that you have confirmed it, okay? On the basis of a single research, So, but Popper's ideas are counter to scientific realism, where we really have a solid belief that our theories, even though tomorrow they can be disproved, we say some have reasonable belief and confidence that our theories are still our guide, in the time. So remember, every theory makes inductive assumptions. If that's the problem in the history of science, the problem of induction. Induction is really, if you read Godfrey Smith, a book that many students don't like, I have a wonderful annotation. I have a $1 million annotation on Popper, on Godfrey Smith. In fact, during the exam, I read only my annotation. My annotation summarizes the entire book. Because if you are reading it page to page, you'll be exhausted. But if you capture the basic...
So when Terry, Dr. Ryan taught us, we didn't use that book.
Yes, no, you are reading Okasha now.
Yeah.
Okasha just did a summary. But Ryan also, he strongly believes in Godfrey Smith. I understand. I don't, what am I using Okasha for? Godfrey Smith will give you, philosophical, how the ideas, propagates across many philosophers, takes his own stand, So he's a scholar. Okasha it is a bit to make it easier for some students. And where you don't understand the gist behind most of these philosophers and the idea of rationality of science, like some people claimed Popper destroyed the rationality of science, you can't stand, how can you evaluate a paper? So this was my answer for this section. First of all, began by saying who Popper is and what he believes, and then apply it to the paper, Oh, my brother, so I hope that one is a bit clearer. You see how you can apply. So that's why I asked you to read most of these things very well. Really study them very well, so that you can, give a very convincing, no, this is not what I'm trying to grab. I'm trying to grab, okay, this qualifying exam, So that's the question, is this paper something that a Popper would have approved? No way.
So I don't know. So I don't think in that philosophy of science, Okasha, I don't remember reading about Popper.
There's Popper there. There's no way you will not read Popper.
There's
Go
Popper
back.
there.
Yeah, I think it's in chapter 3.
There is no way you not read Popper. If you don't read Popper, then
looking for the book.
Yeah, there's no way you not read Popper. There's no way you will not read Kuhn, Feyerabend, Lakatos, Laudent, research traditions, research, so all this stuff. That book is very interesting, honestly. If you sit down and read it the first time, read it the second time, you enjoy it. So define and differentiate the kinds of reasoning known as deductive, inductive, and the abduction. You see, this one is very simple now. But this question shocked me, honestly. I was shocked by this question because I didn't memorize any definition. That's why this exam, you don't need to memorize anything. You can just have a mental picture of some concept or ideas or models, like,
So
what is
inductive? Well,
deductive? What is deductive? Inductive.
So I think deductive,
He says define.
Deductive is testing a theory.
Define and differentiate.
And deductive, you are using a theory, all right? Deductive.
Yeah, like you testing a theory. Inductive, you are exploring a theory.
No, they
or
say
developing a
define.
theory.
Look at people who are going to take this exam, please. I'm telling you, pay attention to the question. Many professors have complained why students fail this exam is that they don't pay attention to the question. Please pay attention to the question. It says define.
Okay,
and
you said
differentiate.
Is this the exam the particular exam you took, Clement?
Yes, it says define. So which means first of all,
you said
define induction.
You
define
said
induction.
You didn't cram any definitions now. So how were you able to define this deduction?
Define there are different approaches, understand, to studying a phenomenon or building theory. We have inductive inferences and deductive inferences. For instance, one will say that induction could be defined as a scientific inference that proceeds, from a particular conclusion to establish a general principle. That's induction. And maybe logical, then because it is a kind of a logical inference. It's a logical inference that proceeds, in which the logic of the argument proceeds from a particular conclusion to establish a general principle.
A general principle.
That proceeds from a particular understanding of a phenomenon and establishes a general principles based on that. And most scientific theories are based on every theory must have this inductive power. the ability to infer what is going to happen in the future. That's what a theory is. A theory tells you, under this condition, under this situation, this is what you're gonna get. So that kind of inductive, so we also have deductive that are also semi-logical. It's a logical inference in which the logic approaches from a particular
a general to particular.
A general and establishes a particular conclusion. Understand? So it is the other way around.
Yeah, it's the same principle now. So I mean, according to what Mohammed was saying.
You explain it the more. You explain it the more. You explain it the more. Bring it to theory. Make reference to theory. You know, maybe you want to look at my sample. My sample answer. Let me look at my sample answer. How I try to answer it. Okay. You know, this is the one I took. You know, on the subsequent ones, you may not have be able to have a sample because everything will be based on what you think. But it's good you know that this kind of question can come up. You know, you have a lot of shocking questions. You know, deductive reasoning is a logical approach in scientific reasoning that attempts to deduce a specific conclusion from observation of general principles. You see how I answered, how I did the definition. It is used in building theories in science by drawing a particular conclusion from a general premise. The hypothetical deductive method is most used to deduce hypotheses are subject to empirical observation in science. In deduction, the truth of the conclusion follows from the true premises. In Brucalia's paper, we can identify construct from a theory or theories and try to gather and analyze. Because it also asks you how you applied it. You know, it also asks you how it can be applied to the research of Brucalia et al. So let me also come up. Okay. So the question says, how would each of these be applied to the topic of concern to Brucalia? You know? Everybody's keeping quiet. I said this should be a discussion. How would you define induction, deduction, abduction? What is abduction?
Do you want me participate?
What is abduction? Everybody is free to talk. You want me to be asking questions like you are students? You are all professors. You are all professors here.
Yeah. Well, I think because I studied the time that you know, when I was doing the course, I haven't reviewed it yet, but the like best explanation is basically like the result that we achieved, like we are able to achieve. For example, like we perform the experiments and then we get the results, and then we, you know, we add them on the paper, and then like we done our best to get the results. For the time that we do the research. So, and could be changed over the time. It's not going to be the same results if we do it in the future. So basically, as a realist scientist, is it's just like doing the research, and then we'll see what explanation that we can come up with. That's my understanding. I haven't reviewed it yet, so.
At least everyone here has done 501. So
yeah,
we are open to more ideas because we should be learning from each other.
For inductive, the best definition is to get the example of the every snow is white until we got the other black one in Australia, which is like a phenomena has been done over and over and over, and we have just confirmed it empirically by using evidence, and we generalize the theory based on that.
Yeah, your explanation, your explanation is good, but kind of do a kind of definition, you know, do some kind of definition, like it is a kind of what is it? You know, definition tries to establish what something is. Like I said, it is like a logical inference, or it is a scientific approach whereby this, that are done. And then you can add other explanation, like the explanation you are doing now. So do some kind of definition, and then do your explanation, and then differentiate them. You understand what I mean? Yeah, the greatest challenge I had during that exam is that definition. Wow, so what kind of, how would I do this, you know?
The paper says adoption is inference to the best explanation.
Abduction or inference of the best explanation is a method of scientific reasoning in which one chooses the hypothesis that would, if true, be the best explain the relevant evidence. So abductive reasoning starts from a set of accepted facts, and then inference most likely or the best explanations. So that is what the abduction means. What abduction means: a method of scientific reasoning in which one chooses a hypothesis that would, if true, best explain, choosing the hypothesis that best explain the relevant evidence. It starts from a set of accepted facts and infers the most likely or the best explanation. So it's almost time for regression. So once it is 8:40 now, wow, I didn't know. Look at how time is flying. So at the end, we end up with only one paper. That's why you guys need to be meeting frequently, because just one paper can just take you time to analyze and spend more time working on, one paper. So, but we have to proceed, So three traditions of research we are covered extensively in this course: empiricism, constructivism, or interpretivism, and realism. Define and differentiate these approaches. How would you apply this to Brucalia? You know what is empiricism? You know what is constructivism? Social constructivism, aka interpretivism. Here you are going to use like your idea of interpretivist from 503 to answer this question. And then realism. Especially it says scientific realism.
You want us to answer, Climate?
Yes, it is an open discussion,
So constructivism is as we look for the phenomena subjectively from what humans think about it. And the other one, which is, you said?
It says define and differentiate. Please pay attention to the question when you are answering. Pay attention to the question. Articulate a definition before you begin the explanation you are just giving. You are just trying to explain it. You have not defined it. Empiricism one would say like empiricism is a philosophical approach that believes that phenomenon can only be understood through observational evidence. As a how people define things, as a philosophical, or as a theory of knowledge. You begin that way to articulate a definition. After that, you can now say everything you want to say about empiricism? Keeping in mind, differentiating it from the other two and applying it to the paper. So this is the technicality of the qualifying exam. People can just answer everything without connecting the. That's why I'm begging you, pay attention to the question. That's what professors are lamenting. Pay attention to the question. If you pay attention to the question, believe you me, you will pass this exam very well because you know the answers. Just pay attention to every bit of the question. This is 34%. Number 3. If you miss this 34%, you might as well fail this paper. So you have to pay attention.
This question, man, is about all Akasha book. The 1, 2, and 3 is
It's
all
about this is 501. This is Godfrey Smith. This is Akasha.
Did you Mohammed, did you use Akasha?
Yes.
Okay.
If you have Akasha, read a little of Godfrey Smith.
Yeah, I just have difficulty with the first 2 chapters because it's all about history. That's my problem. I need to review them again. Like they talk about Einstein and who else? Yeah, those scientists, like popular scientists, and then what they did, what their theories. I haven't get a chance because it was beginning of the semester, and I was busy with other class. I couldn't like review it 100%.
Yeah, let me tell you the best approach to this exercise. Let me tell you how I did with the last group that took this exam. When we convene this meeting, when they come to this meeting, they will decide among themselves the paper they want to review each week. I don't make a choice. They choose any paper. When they come, they discuss. If there is a confusion, I come in to clarify. I come in to clarify the confusion for them. Or if there is any question, it will always be Clement, they always ask me questions. And by the grace of God, I try to articulate my own ideas, So I think that's the way I approach, and it was very helpful to them. You do the discussion. If there is anything like very confusing to you, you ask me, I intervene, and then sometimes if someone says something that is wrong, I will refute it immediately so that others don't learn what is wrong. Because that's a lot of people coming with a whole lot of ideas that are, not contrary to conventional wisdom in this research, endeavor. So when you say something that is correct, I'm not a professor, but at least based on the little knowledge and having gone through this thing, this is like the 3rd year of going through these courses. I can help you, be more focused. So what we still have here is what empiricism, define constructivism, define scientific realism. What are the differences? We've not even finished the inductive and deductive, and we didn't even look at the differences between the 3. Now we are in empiricism. What is the difference between empiricism and interpretivism and the scientific realism? Because there is a difference. Because scientific realism goes beyond empiricism. Scientific realism begins with empiricism and goes beyond empiricism.
Climate,
Yes.
think it is the difference between constructivism and positivism, because empiricism is applied for both of them.
To what?
Empiricism, which is applied for the constructivism, which is interpretivism, and positivism. Is that correct?
Is that like, it is applicable? Remember, in empiricism has its own limitation. Interpretivism is like on a different level itself, on different level of itself. Because when we talk about interpretivism, the idea that comes to mind is that reality, remember, all this is like our theories of knowledge. There are also approaches in science to understanding reality.
Yep.
Each of them is a school of thought on its own. You can read a whole book on empiricism. We have like people like Thomas Hobbes, who are the founders of empiricism. Godfrey Smith and the rest, of the recent times, scientific realists. Popper doesn't belong anywhere. He's an inductive skeptic, So interpretivism believes that reality is socially constructed. It's a theory of knowledge. It is an approach, to doing science, which understand reality from the social construction of people, their beliefs, their ideologies, their feelings. So how people interpret comes from the name. The way people interpret word, is kind of a subjectivism implied in interpretivism. You have to understand someone. You are studying someone. You understanding someone from his own word. The way he sees his own word. It is different from the way. That's why there is double hermeneutics. You are studying the person from the way he sees his word and the way he understands his own word, which means in interpretivism, there is some kind of subjectivism, and it loses, this objectivism that is involved in understanding reality. So you can say that interpretivism, there is no kind of objectivity in interpretivism because it is social construction, what people believe, the way they see the world. There is also this idea of because that's why we call it constructivism. Reality is socially constructed and interpreted. Empiricism is a philosophy of thoughts, a theory of knowledge, an approach to doing science, which believes or upholds that all we can know about reality, all we can know about the world is based on sense perception. Sense perception. What you can see, what you can feel, what you can hear, and every other thing that lies beyond sensory observation doesn't qualify as knowledge. Does it make sense to you so far?
Oh, I'm still confused. What I understood that the interpretivism that it is just that believe that the reality lives in human mind subjectively, where the reality in our mind is not independent our mind, where the positivism as the reality is objectively independent of our mind. Everything is objectively in our life. It's not in our mind. Now, when you said empiricism, that confused me because empiricism, while you have to bring like observation and evidence, that will apply for interpretivism and positivism. One of them to just confirm, claim you have to prove that by evidence and through sensations. Now, what is the empiricism against the interpretivism? I don't know. I thought that is like a method of applying science on one of those two different approaches, which is constructivism and the positivism. Now,
there is no mention of positivism in this paper. There is no mention of, they said three traditions. They didn't mention positivism.
So, okay, could you please just give me a brief explanation for the empiricism?
That's what I was doing then. Reality, understanding the world understanding a world around us is based on sense perception. Simple.
That's the positivism.
So it's yeah. So it's, if you don't mind explaining to you, social reality is socially constructed. So this is for the interpretivism.
Yes.
Like the reality that is exists are constructed in people, like it's
It is
in
in
their
our in
mind.
the
So
human mind. To understand the
yes,
reality, you have to understand what people think, what people say, what people do. But the empiricism, I see empiricism is equal to positivism, but Klein said no, this is different between them. I'm right. Am I right?
I'm not sure about. As I know, my boss for the
Don't bring in positivism. Just focus on empiricism, interpretivism, and the realism. If you can bring in positivism, why, if you want to mention it, then bring it in scientific realism, where it is more appropriate to mention it.
Now, if you go back to the book of qualitative, the first thing we start with to distinguish between interpretivism and positivism in qualitative wise. Now, you just, I don't know, you might write, I don't know.
Positivism is a different philosophical current. Believes in the objectivity of reality, and that reality can be quantified in numerical terms. It's not what this question is asking. It's not what this question is asking. I think we have explained it. What of about scientific realism? You can read and study and then try to convince yourself of the differences between them. So, but I have already stated, when you're talking about reality that exists in the mind, that's why it involves, that's why when I said it involves some level of subjectivism, you know?
Yes,
In the
right.
that's what I mean by what you're saying. So what of scientific realism?
Scientific realism is a mechanism of how the physical reality, right? That's the definition of theory.
So others should try to articulate what is scientific realism. This is like everyone I think knows what scientific realism is. Maybe we're trying to look for the right words to express it.
what that was website for Clement, the one in the blue.
Which website?
Kronos.
I think you open a website with a blue, it has a blue theme.
A website.
That's background of the whole laptop, I think. So.
Is it this one?
No, not this one.
He's asking about Kronos. It has something to do with CGU stuff, right?
That's not what we're doing here.
It's just like, you know, when you have about something, talking about something serious, and somebody said, "Where is my clothes?" Oh, just kidding.
So scientific realism. What do you think about scientific realism? What is scientific realism? Discuss it.
Yeah, can you see your answer?
It's almost 9 o'clock. We started by 7 to 8 to 9, 2 hours, no break. So discuss about scientific realism, and then we continue by 8 and by 8 to Henry.
9:20.
Okay, 9 to Henry, yeah, by 9 to Henry. But let's keep on talking, you know, but you can grab anything you want to grab. Okay, have you studied 541 very well?
Look, Clement, you see me, I'm using the summer to study. I haven't studied anything. I'm just getting my mind prepared.
Are you guys, Muhammad and the
How many
others?
are we here? You know, others, there are many others are not talking. Amira is not talking. Heidi is not even talking.
Yeah, I think the scientific.
Heidi, that is not how we operate here. You just come, you sit down and be listening. It violates the principle of this workshop. I always like people contributing and contributing. That is the only way, you know.
Yeah, I just.
Mira said I talked. All right, guys.
But
Anyway,
they are
Is
good
it-
listeners. They are good listeners.
by the time I sign off from this workshop, and then you enter into any other group, you understand what it means to be boring. I'm trying my best to make sure keep on talking and talking for 2 hours to keep things moving, and you know, just imagine where I keep silent. That's why with the previous group I don't talk. I just wait till they ask me questions or there's any debate. You know, that's the best way to go, so that you can be able to voice out your idea. The more you discuss what you know, the more you sediment, you know, the knowledge becomes part of you.
Yeah.
It's
I have
good
a question.
exercise for you. Go ahead. Sorry, Edith.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just want to ask a comment. For the question 2, the question asked define and differentiate the kind of reasoning, know the 3 different reasoning. So should I answer the definition of each one of them and then choose one to apply to this topic?
It says, okay, how would each of these be applied? Each of these be applied to this topic. That's what it says. How would each of these be applied? It means you are going to define each of them. You are going to define each of them. You are going to differentiate each of them from each, and then
choose
how
one.
how each of them will be applied to the paper.
Okay.
That's like 3 questions or 3 answers you're going to provide. The first is definition of each. The second is differentiation between the 3. And then the third answer is how you can apply each. You know?
Okay, got it. So for the third question, that is same with the second one. Also, I need to define the talk about the definition about empiricalism and constructivism and others.
Yes.
Okay.
You have to define and differentiate. Let me grab my sample answer. My sample answer. Disclaimer. Let me make a disclaimer. This answer is by no way the best answer in the world. or the objective answer, you know, to this question. This is only my personal question, my personal answer as a student during the exam to this question. So I've made that disclaimer. So that's why AFAF asked me not to share I shouldn't share my answers. If I share it, some students will go and memorize it. And then when they come into the exam hall that day, they will not even mind what the question is all about. They will begin to vomit. So look at my, let me give you.
The professors give sample answers, Clement. Do they give sample answers?
Yes, you don't get sample answers in qualifying exams. You don't get it. It's only during the class you can get it. That's why I was warned not to share this in a folder. So, but I can already showcase it now, you know, but at least so that you can read 1 or 2 things. You can read through it.
I can't read it. Could you please explain?
Okay.
It?
You can't read it.
I can't. I actually used my phone to join this meeting.
Okay. And there's no way you can read it on your phone. There's no way, because I think it's is there any way to zoom out in this Google Google here.
Unless after the meeting, when I get back home, then I can open my computer.
You have to zoom out.
Yes.
You just have to increase the
fonts, right?
see the 100%. See where it says 100%.
Where? Here.
Yeah. Further.
Okay. Okay. 25. I increase the font. 150. It's better like this, right? Should I go
makes a difference.
A little bit more? 200.
No, that was too much.
Okay, yeah, it has exceeded the boundary. So let me bring it back to 150.
Hey, Clement, I have a question.
Yeah.
Clement. No,
Yeah.
it's not about the material, about the exam itself. So do you think a guy who's not just started now and the time is only 3 months to the exam, is it good enough to get the exam if he study hard by now?
3 months for this remaining 3 months, right?
You don't understand me?
I said for this remaining 3 months, whether it is, okay, if you study hard, for the exams.
Yeah.
Sure.
How many hours do you think it's good enough to study to get this exam?
Uncountable number of hours. Uncountable. You manage your schedule the way you want to study. If you know you have so much to read, then you have to make out time to make sure you cover. It's gonna steal your public life. It's gonna steal your, your usual, communication with friends and hanging out with friends. You're gonna go indoors these 3 months to study.
Yeah, the only 3 months.
If there is any time, I would even ask you to start moving around, socializing. It's maybe a week to the exam or 2 weeks when you're already saturated.
One more question. Do you think I don't need to go to any other material? I just need to stick on these.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for your participating, Alma.
So the second question was, borders on, I think it should be, is it Panet? Let me check. No, this is in the integrative question. The second part of the question is, no, this one is 504. Maybe I don't have that paper up here on my, I don't have it up here on my. Oh no. So I think you all know what empiricism. What if this year they ask you what is differentiate between positivism and scientific realism? Such a thing might come up. So this is this is 503 qualitative. No, the next question we need to look at is the 504. This is 500, 501. Let's look at 504 before we go to 543. The 504 question here is you are going to discuss this work, till we end this section tonight, because here you have a lot of arguments to raise in this paper. Information and communication technology for adoption for development, evidence from MOOCs. Look briefly at this paper. Look at the introduction. Look at the literature review on MOOC. We all know what it is. Look at the human capital and the information adoption. They use mentioned youth out and other theories, that give
This
rise
is not
to
a conference paper, is it?
to the youth out. It's a conference paper. Even one of the worst paper for this exam. Research in progress paper.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Look at their development and then look at the model. This is where I want you guys to. You have to redo this model because this model is messed up. So begin now to argue. I'm around. What is the overall problem with this model? Apply Davidson. Critique this paper. Let me ask you first of all to look at some of the constructs. Look for their operational definition and a conceptual definition. Think about their scales, validation, reliability, and validity. Look at the definition of human capital. They describe what human capital is all about. But in this paper, there is no operational definition of human capital. How can you measure human capital? For you to operationalize a variable, you have to look at the attributes.
They said for the term human capital, for the purposes of this paper, describes how changes in a person's skill and capabilities enable that person to behave in new ways.
How do you operationalize it?
So like a formula, right?
Operationalization we are talking about, how is it measured? How is it measured? How is it measured? How can you measure human capital? What are the attributes?
When you say operationalization or whatever, operation, whatever you said.
Operationalize a variable.
Operationalize a variable. Does that mean describing the variable in terms of other variables?
Operationalize is to quantify the variable, to state how the variable can be measured. It usually flows from the conceptual definition. It flows from the conceptual definition of the variable. So you have to give us a definition of the variable you are using, and from that definition, you give us how the variable will be measured. And you measure a variable based, since it is a latent variable, it's not a variable that is not a manifest variable that you can measure directly, So operationalization is assigning number to a variable so that it can be measured. How are you going to measure human capital? And the way to measure the latent variable is to look at the attributes of human capital. And these attributes must be empirical attributes that can be seen, that can be measured. And these attributes is usually what we call content validity.
Climate, you make it very difficult, man.
Huh?
You make it very difficult. Is this on our material? I think this is very high level. We didn't get this thing before.
Did you say?
Remember that
Oh, my network is My network is breaking.
Ibrahim's not.
We are losing his signal.
Yeah, we are losing his signal. Is it from my end or from his end?
From his end, we're all losing
Okay,
his.
I mean, oh, so my internet is not good.
Yeah, Ibrahim, are you
That's
saying
all.
I'm making it difficult or that the idea is
No,
difficult?
the idea is, you know what? There's like a certain arrangement I need. It's not you, it's me. To get your idea, I have a pre-knowledge I should have before I get your level. That pre-knowledge is missing in my mind. I would say I need to get back and review
Don't worry.
things that.
Don't worry. Don't worry. That's why we are here. Don't worry. That's why we are here.
I really
You know?
appreciate it. Thank you very
So
much
now,
for climate.
because let me tell you, you are going to encounter the same thing when you are doing your dissertation. Sometimes you are working on something that has not been done before, as they will always expect you to do something nobody have done. You know, sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you have to come up with variables based on your literature review. You know, you'll be able to assemble a whole many variables that can define the phenomenon you are studying. Sometimes you discover that most of these variables have not been operationalized. You know, they don't have even validated scales. You have to find a way to come up with scales, because we say we usually depend on literature review to find validated scales. It was someone who did it, you know. So you can also validate your own scale for your research. Now, the question is, they say for the interest of this paper, look at what human capital means for us. It's a kind of a conceptualization, because usually you have to define what the variable means in the context of your research, because what human capital means for them in this research may be different when it goes to finances. Human capital may mean some other thing to some financial managers. It might mean some other thing to management. It might mean some other thing in communications. So you have to tell us exactly what human capital means in the paper you are studying. And you have to tell us how you are going to measure it, since it is a latent variable that cannot be seen, which means you need to operationalize it based on the attributes of this human capital. What are those things that constitutes human capital that we can observe, that can be measured? So that's the content validity of them. Did they do it in this paper? No way, they didn't do it. Rubbish. -1. That's how you criticize a paper. Did they give us any scales? No. Okay, look at the concept of development. We all know about information adoption now because they mentioned Venkatesh, the youth out. Okay, look at their development. Tell me, how did they operationalize development? Development is defined as the interruption of the business cycle. Development is often used to describe growth in this. Where is, okay, it says, which is considered theoretically or politically. Thus, it is considered to be development. Where is the operational definition? How can we measure development? Before they even come to a model, let me show you the one I'm working on for my dissertation. Let me see if we can. I close this page. Let me close this one again. Pre-dissertation. So that is can you see my can you see my screen? Not yet. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. This is my pre-dissertation. Professor Ryan is still working on this paper to review it and then give me feedback, So, but where I want to emphasize is like, You
Is your
know,
dissertation quant?
no, the pre-proposal. You have to write a pre-proposal paper. You know.
I know, but is the research quant or qual?
Quant.
Yeah, he doing the
PLSM.
ESM. Yeah.
It's gonna be PLSM. Now let me quickly go to what I was trying to look at: operationalization and the measurement model. I talk about flexible curriculum. You know, flexible curriculum is like something very abstract, you know, latent variable. Look at it here. I said curriculum flexibility is conceptualized as accessibility, adaptability of the curriculum to the student needs and capabilities. This is a conceptual definition I provided. And this is hence the construct curriculum flexibility can be measured formatively through a 4-item scale that corresponds to the elements of curriculum mentioned by Nicola. Look at this. M on the objective: teaching, learning, environment, time. Now, look at the curriculum flexibility formatively measured. Why is it formatively measured? Understand? You know, because it is based on this literature. And then I came up with validated scale. So this is, I provided a conceptual definition and how it is going to be measured. I said that it is going to be measured using 1, 2, 3, 4. And this 1, 2, 3, 4 is based on this 1, 2, 3, 4. And then look at how I mentioned it. I said items 1 to 2 capture adaptability. Here is adaptability. And items 3 to 4, environment and time, captures accessibility. And that is what it means here. Environment and time has to do with accessibility of the curriculum, you know, it's environment and time. If it is flexible, then it has to overcome every boundaries of environment and time. So that's what I'm trying to say here. So now I have defined what the variable here means. This latent variable curriculum flexibility. And then I've mentioned how it will be measured. So for me, this construct have a content validity because this content 1, 2, 3, 4, look, I say each of the indicators shall be measured on a 5-point Likert scale, you know, with anchors. 1, strongly disagree, to 5, strongly disagree. So using the 5-point Likert scale, respondents will evaluate the following statements. Like 1, are you allowed to choose the content and assessment strategies of this course? Are the learning pedagogies and the materials used in this course helpful in the learning out course? Do you have problems assessing the course online and in class? Does the time constrain you from learning at your own pace? So these questions now, each of these questions captures one of these indicators measuring this latent variable. So these are the manifest variables. So each of these questions, are you allowed to choose the content and assessment strategy of this course? Is 1. And this one is aims and objective of the learning, which cover content and assessment. Content and assessment. Now, that's why I asked, does it allow you to choose content and assessment? Because we're talking about flexibility in curriculum. So if the person says no, or no, based on this Likert scale, you can be able to know that evaluating the particular course they are doing, whether it is really flexible. So the problem, so this is my first construct. This is also my second construct is affordance. Look at affordance. I explained what affordance, like those guys did in their paper. You explained technological affordance, which is another construct. Did all the explanation, then I landed at, hence I conceptualize TAF in blended learning, following the idea of barrier as the extent to which technological tool offers communicative, instrumental, collaborative, cognitive, and learning assessment affordances that contributes to learning objective. This is the conceptual definition for this research. I explain all these affordances, what they mean, you know, I explain what they mean. And then look at the operationalization. Here I operationalize the variable, how it will be measured. 5-point Likert scale. 5. So Look at the unvalidated measures because they have not been validated. Look at the measures like I came up with. And then the last one in the model is technology content knowledge. Look at also, this one is already validated scales already. It's already validated in research, this TCK. So, and then look at the model. Very simple one. There might also be mediating or mediating variable, but that's what I will figure later. So I'm still waiting for feedback. So what these guys didn't do in their paper. Let's go back to their paper again. That's Young.
They don't. Sorry.
What? What they did in the paper, they mentioned the definition of human capital and development, but they didn't tell us how it's going to be measured. Do you see it now? Is there any way they mentioned development, how it's going to be measured? Likert scale, how many points on the scale? There's no operationalization, how it's going to be measured. They didn't discuss it in this paper. Okay, now look at their model. Tell me
what's the difference between operationalization and content
and the conceptualization.
What is content validity?
Conceptualization is the definition you gave.
No, I'm saying you mentioned something earlier about content validity.
Content validity is the number of scales, like I showed you in my own model. The number of attributes that captures that latent variable, because it is a latent variable. The human capital is a latent variable. There's no way you can measure human capital
directly
now.
Yes.
Okay. So you have to think about things that constitute human capital. Attributes of human capitals that can be measured. It can be 3 or 4 or 5 attributes. So if it is really 3 or if it is 4 attributes, for instance, then your content validity will mean that you have captured every aspect, every attribute of that particular construct. That's when you have content validity. You don't have content validity when there is something, an aspect of that variable that is missing. Is it hard? Bro, this is.
I have to read this.
What is it? When they start calling you a doctor now, you'll be raising your shoulders. Now is the time to work for it. So, Dr. Ibrahim, you want to say something? Yeah.
I'm listening to you, Clement. I'm trying to build my knowledge. As I told you, I'm still need to get back to review what I missed, so I can follow with you with full, knowledge, not just like operationalization. What does that mean to me? I need to get back to see what's. Oh, this is. That's why I told you, operationalization is not. And back when I got the 500, we didn't get this term before. This is the first time I have heard it. To be honest, I know the conceptualization and theoretical. What's the difference between theoretical approach and conceptual approach? But operationalization, I have never heard with that.
Yeah, because what you hear mostly is measures. You know, you've heard about like Likert scale. You have heard about measures. You know, scales. You have heard about scales. You've heard about content validity. You know, yes. So the idea of measuring that concept, that variable with the scales, is called operationalization. You are making operationalization means making operational. You are making it operational. You are making it in a way that it can be understood better. It can be measured. It's assigning numbers to a variables that cannot be measured directly. And the numbers you are assigning is the questions you are asking for each, each scale, of measuring that particular construct. Like I showed you in my own, what I was trying to come up, So guys, what do you think about, I've said it in the past, go back to that UTAUT paper. Study that UTAUT paper very well. If you study it very well, and you'll be grounded. That paper helped me a lot. UTAUT 1 and UTAUT 2. Study it very well. When you study it very well, it becomes the standard for you to judge any other model you come across. If you don't know UTAUT very well, you won't understand. There is even a problem because they borrowed the construct from UTAUT in this research. And they introduced 2 other constructs. And they confused the adoption. Confused the adoption as a moderating variable. So guys, what do you think about this paper? About this model? How can you do this model better?
I'm a little confused. The model, what is the the factor about human capital? What is it moderation, or it have a relationship with the adoption of MOX? Yeah, I think in the model, the human capital is a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And they didn't describe their hypothesis between human capital with other variables.
Part of the problem. Part of the problem. You have already started pointing out the problem, is human capital, predicting adoption directly, or is adoption a moderating variable? I hope I'm correct. It should be moderator, right? And not mediator. Yeah. So adoption in that paper should be like, stands like a moderating variable. So how come in such a model? How come adoption? So now, where is the dependent and the independent variables in this model? Which variables are predicting the other? That's the confusion. Can you solve the riddle?
It looks like the dependent is development of students. Yeah, the outcome. The independent is.
Which one do you say is the outcome?
The outcome is independent. The outcome should be independent. Oh,
dependent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one is the dependent variable?
Development of students.
Huh?
Development of students.
No, based on the model the model you are looking at there are the variables. You're looking at the variables.
Yeah, so she's talking about the dependent variable is.
Yeah, look at the paper again. Information communication technology for development, evidence from MOC adoption. So which one is the dependent and the independent variables in this research model? Looking at the arrows already signals.
So the adoption
of can you see development of students?
No. Look at the model well. Look at the arrows.
I can see the arrow was going to. However, most likely the arrow.
Look at the paper says information and communication technology for development, evidence from MOOC adoption?
So basically the MOOC is place independent and dependent variable at the same time.
The what?
It plays the role of independent variable and dependent variable at the same time.
Yeah, the
So
MOOC should be the dependent variable.
and also independent variable as well.
It comes as an independent variable. That's why there's a problem with the model. So what you need to do now is to redo this model so that it makes sense. Because here, MOOC is placed as a moderator, and it shouldn't be this way.
Can you go back to the topic title, please, if you don't mind? So information and communication technology for development. Okay, can you go to this abstract, please? Can you show the abstract? Yes, thank you. Just get abstract. Yes, you just take a look on it, really.
Now, what you have to know is this. Look at here. Look at here. Look at here. They mentioned adoption, and they use youth out.
Okay, let's see here.
But think about the youth out model, how the youth out model runs. If you are using the youth out construct for your predictive, for a predictive model, then you have to use it properly. Did they use youth out properly here?
No, because they're missing like the gender.
Not even the gender. Understand?
The layout is wrong.
The behavioral intention is now represented by the intention to adopt MOOC. And therefore,
I got your point. Point.
Where they placed MOOC as a moderator is wrong. If you look at the youth out, does any of you have the youth out? Let's go back to the youth out.
Yeah, but I think this question is kind of like high level, man. Like
that is why it is doctoral qualifying exams.
Yeah. No, it's really high level. Like you have to make sure that, like, basically you are an editor. You know.
Yeah. So let me tell you honestly, this for 2012 is cheaper. By the time we go back to spring 2021, everyone will run away. Yeah. If you go back to spring, that's the worst exam I've seen in CGU. But some people
was tough.
Wow, that was the most difficult exam.
Yeah.
I'm trying to grab Utah here. Let me join with my iPad. Let me stop sharing here. I want to show you something. That's why I always ask students, go back to Utah, learn your Utah very well. Use your Utah as the standard for evaluating. Okay, no audio. So share my content. Why I said I can't share because I want to jump from. Just hold on. I wonder. How do I? I wish I have Utah paper on my computer. I'm trying to access it from my library. Sharing. Where do I get the sharing again? Okay, sharing screen. Okay, multiple. Allow multiple to share. Okay. Okay, now yes, I can share my screen now. Start broadcast. Okay. Okay. So we're going to my library. It's my iPad library where I organize every other paper I read. So you do annotation in iPad. If you don't use your iPad, to study, you are missing out a lot.
Well, that's good, brother. You know, if you look on my iPad, they're all pictures. I don't have articles.
Yeah, I'm trying to grab. Okay, okay, yes, it is here.
Can you do highlight with your iPad while you're reading?
Yeah, you can. If you have the Acroport reader, you can.
Oh, you
You
need to
have it.
purchase that or free?
I think there is free versions.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, this
so,
one.
so guys, look at it now. They used performance expectancy, right? In that paper. They used effort expectancy, right?
Yeah.
They use social influence. They also use facilitating condition. They also added human capital and added development, which we all agree that they didn't operationalize. You know, they didn't tell us how they measured. They didn't tell us anything about scales. Validity and reliability was not mentioned. Then they came up with a model. Now, if they use performance expectancy is an independent variable predicting behavioral intention. And according to their paper, it should have been that MOOC should be intention to adopt MOOC. And therefore, the MOOC should be at the center where this behavioral intention is, and every other arrow pointing directly to it. Even the human development pointing to MOOC, and the human capital pointing to MOOC, such that the model will have only one dependent variable, because the behavioral intention is a dependent variable. You know, here in this model, and then this rest at the left are independent variables. Each of them hypothesizing a relationship. Performance expectancy has a direct relationship to behavioral intention, and they all been validated, and that's why you can use. So how come they used the constructs, you know, from UTOUT, and then plexed the dependent variable, which should be MOOC, should have been the intention to adopt. They placed it as a moderator in their own model. All these things are mediating variables, right? You know, each of them mediate the relationship between this. They didn't even mention the mediating variables. That one is no problem. The problem is that the model is flawed. They messed it up. You know, Professor Ryan would say that not everyone has the opportunity to learn as much as we learn in CGU. So many researchers will come up with messing up a whole lot of things based on their limited knowledge. You know, if you are using a model, then retain all the construct and use the model in the right way. Since it is now adoption of MOOC, prediction of adoption, and they use UTOUT, and the UTOUT is a very good predictive model that has up to 64 or 65 point something, you know, predictive validity, more than 10, and the rest of any other predictive model you can talk about. That's why it is the default prediction model in IX. It has been time tested. And this works well when you are working, when you are doing a research that is based on organizational, in an organizational, you know, setting. If you are doing it in a commercial setting, then you go for UTOUT 2. You go for UTOUT 2, extending. You go for UTOUT 2. This is the extension. And here is the chart of the extension. You see the extension. They added hedonic motivation, price, value, and habit. And this is within a consumer setting. So if you are proposing a theory, want to do adoption on an organizational setting where things like not where there is, you know, this lack of voluntariness, you use the previous model. Here is a kind of voluntary setting. You know, I mean, involuntary setting. Am I getting it wrong? All right. I mean,
Yeah. Commercial is involuntary.
Involuntary, yes. Yeah. So this is an involuntary setting. So in an involuntary setting, price plays an important role. Habit plays an important role. Hedonic motivation. So it was added to this model with all the moderators. And then you see how the model came up. So now you can better, let me stop sharing now. Please go back to these two models. Study these two papers very, very well so that you can ground it in models.
Oh.
So it's almost time for us to go. And so you can see the problem with this. You can easily see the problem now with this model. They want to use util, but they didn't use it in the proper way. Why would abduction be like a moderator? It's confusing. That was the first thing I spotted out the day they gave us this paper. You know?
Can you go back to the abstract, please? Because I think in the abstract, they should give an idea about what's going on. And that...
This is research in progress paper, so you can pardon them.
Yes.
So guys, we've come to the end of today. This is after 10. Thank you all for your participation tonight. And we have to call it a day today. We shall continue. I will offer one more section next Monday, and maybe we look at 543. And then you guys will decide on how this will run, you know, subsequently.
Yeah, no matter how it goes. Well, thank you very much, Clement, for volunteering and all of your help. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much, Climate. You really appreciate it. You just made that effort, and we just have saying thank you very much. And keep up, man.
Yeah.
Keep up.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you,
thank you guys. Thank you guys. And so we're gonna see one more time on Monday. Then after Monday, you guys will come together and then take up this class on your own. If you need me to be still here, then we negotiate how it's going to be. Otherwise, I can come in anytime I have time. Understand? See what's going on. So
sounds good. We'll see you on Monday.
Thank you.
Yeah,
all
so
right. See you on
next Monday we'll discuss the 503, the question about 503, right?
We finish up with this one. Next Monday
Okay.
we finish up with this one, and then we look at 543.
Okay.
Did you discuss time in the 505 and the integrated question in the previous?
This is 504 now.
Okay, what about the 505 and the integrity?
Yes, we are going to look at them again. We are going to look at 505, so we'll be able to finish, them the next Monday. So,
okay.
But yeah, you guys, if those who have registered for this exam, please use this opportunity on this platform to come together. To come together because some of us here are not taking the exam this fall. So if you are taking this exam this fall, you guys should come together, and form your group, create a Zoom section, and then you can also create a WhatsApp group. You can add me to the WhatsApp group, understand, and then discuss how you will be meeting, the number of days you'll be meeting, so you have to do that.
We gotta do that next Monday. Next Monday is gonna be last Monday with us.
Let's do that. Let's do that between now and Monday. So
yes, between now and Monday. Yeah.
Okay. You said that you're gonna take charge, like you will be responsible for making this happen.
I mean, we already have a group. We can use this current group, but in the Zoom sections, I don't want to inconvenience Clement since he's going to Nigeria.
You can use the same. You can still use the same WhatsApp group. Understand?
Yeah.
I'm not deleting it because you still have materials there to study on the WhatsApp group. So the WhatsApp group will remain for you. So what you need to create a Zoom section. You create a Zoom section and then you come together and then you help yourselves.
When are you going to Nigeria, Clement?
On the 30th.
Okay, we have to coordinate then. Because I'm really hoping we can meet at least twice a week and go by.
You guys have to do it. You have to be meeting twice a week.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe more at that last month, we might be meeting more than twice, maybe 3 times a week.
If anyone or any group wants to hire me, you hire me, I tell you how much it means to hire me for the entire summer.
It's the work of God.
Oh, the work of God. Oh, no. You don't say this. It's not work of God. We are here in the US. If I should take up another summer job, then I know how much I will make in, taking up another summer job. So